So welcome everybody to our 8th series of webinars this year Powered by Search. Today we'll be talking about top local SEO ranking factors in 2015. And if you have a local business and you've ever wondered how to rank on local search or get found on Google, for example, you're in for a treat today because I'm joined by 3 experts that are much smarter than I. And specifically, those guys are Mike Ramsey, my friend from Nifty Marketing. We've known each other a long time, and Mike is an absolute savant in local search. We're also joined by Caleb Donegan, who's a director of product marketing at Ballyhoo, and Marcus Miller, all the way from England. He is the owner at Bowler Hat. So let's get started and start talking about local search. A couple of housekeeping items from the Powered by Search team here in Toronto. You have myself. My name is Dev Basu, and I'm the founder of Powered by Search. And I'm joined today by 2 of my associates, Goran Popovic, he's our digital marketing strategist, and Dwayne Rajkumar, who's our link building specialist. So they'll be taking questions on this webinar and making sure that it runs smoothly. So please give a round of applause for those guys as well. Other housekeeping items. In terms of the webinar recording, it's going to be available on September the 8th. And you can get that at poweredbysearch.com/blog. You'll also be able to look at the actual total webinar series at the 2015 webinar series link that's included on your screen right now. An email will be sent in full to all the attendees. So you don't have to bother about taking notes. This is all recorded basically, and you can focus on attention just around the good stuff, which is all the actionable strategies you'll learn today around improving your local search presence. Okay, so the next thing, today's hashtag is Marketing Fanatics. We're looking forward to your questions on Twitter using that hashtag, or feel free to use the chat feature over here, and Dwayne and Goran will be monitoring your questions, and we'll be taking some of the questions towards the end of this webinar and answering them for you. So if you have any burning local search questions, feel free to go ahead and add those. And with that, let's get started. So the first question that we have is, how important is local search and local SEO specifically in 2015? And Mike, maybe I'll start with you. I know that, Mike, you work with a ton of different local businesses. Tell me a bit more about how local search has changed in 2015 and what's important. Marcus, we'll move over to you while Mike unfreezes.
I mean, local marketing is more important than ever because Google itself has almost doubled down really on kind of local results within search. So if you're a local business and you want to get in front of customers who are looking for the service that you provide, then you need to have solid local SEO. Local SEO as a process itself has become more important because obviously with the release of the snack pack, the results thinning down to 3 rather than 7, it's going to become a lot more competitive. So where we may have had businesses that sat in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th position and didn't have to do a great deal, suddenly they're off the page, and we can guess that the offshoot of that is going to be increased competition over the coming sort of weeks and months. So ultimately, if you want to stay in front of the people that are looking for the services that you provide, then you've really got to get your local on point.
Yeah, I think those are all very fair points, and it is getting more and more competitive, isn't it? So tell me a bit more about, Caleb. How do you deal with the increasing complexity of local SEO?
Yeah, I mean, the key to it is really kind of staying informed on it. The nice thing about the local SEO community, or just the SEO community in general, is the fact that everyone's pretty open and shares a lot of information about what's working and not working for them. So, I mean, one of the major pieces that you can take on immediately is just getting a great RSS feed and learning about what's going on. So, from a competitive aspect of it, with all the changes that have actually happened over the last year or so, with algorithm changes, with introductions of new functionality, with layout changes, the snack pack, all that stuff, there's some just great literature out there to follow. So Mike has a great blog that he contributes to. People like Mike Blumenthal or David Nim or even Moz and places like that are Powered by Search put out really good content around the stuff. So staying up on that is probably the best way to stay competitive.
Brilliant. And Mike, welcome back. It's nice to see you unfrozen.
So just really quickly, I would say from my angle, the big thing that's changing in local is the focus on mobile, probably more than anything else, as far as traffic increasing on mobile and also the different experience that takes place on mobile devices for finding a local business. So for instance, the directions start mattering a lot more, location matters a lot more, things like that. So that's probably the bigger change I've seen across 2015 beyond the things that have already been mentioned as far as the design, different things like that. So.
I want to back up a little bit, and we talked about the snack pack. Now, for those of us who might not be familiar with what's being referred to as a snack pack, could you shed some light on that? What is the snack pack?
The snack pack is a new, and the name, of course, everybody's going to use a different name. So the new local search pack, local stack snack pack, is a stack of 3 businesses that will show up, both on mobile and on desktop, that will show the listing information. Some key differences with the UI on this is that you do not click through to your website unless you click a website link. The direction button is there. The phone number can be hidden or is hidden, so it's not visibly available until you click through on the listing. And the website itself, there's no URL showing, so you just get a totally different UI with different information available. And I still think that that's being tested. I'm not sure we're seeing the end result of that, and there could be changes on a daily basis as far as different pieces of information that are being shown or not shown. One thing right now is they're saying sometimes categories now are showing up on a listing underneath the business name as far as the main business category that they're in, so like plumber or something like that, where tomorrow that might not be the case. I just think it's right now in a state of constant test. So.
Yeah, and I would say it's the same from our experience looking at our clients who are now part of the snack pack as well. One of the key interesting parts about it is that Google is now reverting to 3 results rather than 7. And in the past, we've had 1 pack, 3 packs, and 7 packs, for example. Does the fact that they're going down to 3 say anything, assuming that the fact that there's 3 results, even if there are UI or UX changes? What does it say basically? What are you reading in between the lines? And maybe I'll ask Caleb about that one.
Yeah, so I mean, they're constantly iterating their UI and the way that they display results. So I think that there's a lot of different motives behind why they're doing what they're doing. Above all else, they're trying to improve the user experience. At least that's the idea. But I think that one thing that will be interesting to come out of this is right now you're seeing a lot of SERPs where the first organic listing doesn't come until below the pack, which was never the case before. You could still have a very high organic listing, and then the local pack would come, and then you'd have the rest of your results page. But some of the stuff that they're testing out right now is in flux, just like Mike said. I think that they're going to come out of this with a lot of feedback. Like, for example, people not clicking through their website and not getting that click-through and that traffic is going to be a big piece, and if they decide to keep them within the UI of the SERP the whole time, that's going to be a big piece. And right now, sometimes they're not even displaying websites in the pack, and sometimes they are. So there's a lot of fallout that can come out of this, but I think overall they're just trying to get more focused and make it so that local businesses focus more on what they should be doing to show up.
So with all this flux basically going on, and especially the insight around the fact that sometimes the snack pack is basically coming up first and the organic listing is coming up after the fact, it might be a good segue into actually our next question, which is a lot of local businesses have a ton of service areas, and so they don't necessarily only service the main city basically that they're located in. And they sometimes will send out a truck, for example, to be able to service different areas. Maybe you're a plumber, for example, or in contractor trades. Given the fact that organic rankings are now not showing up, what's the best way in 2015 to rank locally for multiple service areas? And I'll ask Marcus to take this one.
Yeah, it's a tough question, because if you've got a single business that has multiple locations and they have a physical location in each area, then the traditional local SEO approach, is taken for each individual location, so each location can rank. But if you have a business that has one location but then has multiple service areas, being visible in all of those areas isn't always possible. We we hate to say it depends, but you really do have to take a look at the results, at the clustering of the businesses around that one given area, and determine the best strategy. I mean, often what we found is it is the organic results below the pack that provide the best opportunity to have an extension for service areas beyond where you can actually rank within the local pack. So, where we may see a pack and some results below, we can still generally get companies with a service area page in those results. So it's tough. Different industries will have different clustering of businesses, different locations will have different clustering. It's, I guess you want to build signals around those specific locations that you service. So, if you've got a location page, you make sure that the content on that page really ties you into that specific area, whether that's testimonials or links to clients that you have in that area. You've got to provide the proof, I think, that you actually have some kind of credibility and some presence within that area.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks for that answer. So, Mike, I wanted to ask you actually a little bit about, going off Marcus's point about local pages and having a local landing page set up. Years ago, in 2008, I wrote a blog post about how to optimize a local landing page and having a local landing page being able to rank within organic search. What are some of the things that have changed since then that would make a local landing page highly relevant for a user in 2015?
If you were to be 100% honest, not a ton has changed as far as what it takes to rank from 2008 till today. I would say just competition has gotten a little more fierce, and so and the other thing is the level of quality that you would have to put into it. So in 2008, you used to be able to take a set of content, and just switch out the city name and keywords across the board and basically scale your local landing pages and kill it. Like, you can rank everywhere. Now, moving till today, the biggest difference I would say is that you have to have unique content. It's very likely that you could run across like a Panda filter if you have 1,000 pages of locations that are basically all the same content with just a couple keywords switched. Now, Matt Cutts, his word on it was you need to at least have a few sentences unique to that location with the location's physical address, different things like that to basically make it unique. What I've personally seen in search results is that it takes a lot more content than that to do well organically with those local pages, or even in the map pack with those local pages associated with the listing. But it's definitely still the way to go. I would say taking it a step even further is building out multiple pages for maybe different services within a single location compared to just one overall capturing page. So now we've gone from just having one location page for, let's say a lawyer in an area to maybe 5 or 6 that are unique towards different experiences or different services that they're offering in those specific areas, which I do think you have to be careful about to make sure that you have enough quality that it's just not sending poor signals.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And one of the things that I've seen clients and local businesses struggle with is coming up with an idea or a framework basically for where to get this contextual local content from. So I wanted to ask Caleb actually, can you think about some creative ways of being able to add value to a local landing page beyond sort of just store hours and address information, maybe some testimonials, the type of thing that you typically see on a local landing page? What are some ways you can creatively make it really hyper-local but also very useful?
Yeah, I think what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to differentiate that location from the others. And yeah, like you said, there's those key ways of doing so in NAP and kind of even their content description, your business hours, things like that. Reviews is a great way of doing that, right? To actually incorporate reviews for a specific location, that shows that it's a separate entity, right? It's its own business. Even if it's part of a franchise, even if it's part of a large corporation, it's still its own business and offers its unique value. So focus on the things that make you different. Focus on things like adding your staff, even like people that actually work in your location. Anything that, your history of your location, why, how long you've been around, why you're an expert in what you do. Even things, instead of just having your name, address, and phone number, having things like, we are on the corner of, so-and-so and across from another business. Things like that can really show the consumer a couple of things. One, that you do have your own unique business, but then two, that you put effort into your website, and then it also, in doing so, shows search engines the exact same thing.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. Those are very good points. A couple of other things that I've seen that really help are, I mean, if you want to go look at examples of large businesses that are doing this well on a local context, is Airbnb actually does a great job with its local neighborhood pages, where they start talking not only about, you know, where the actual listings are, but about other options within that neighborhood, where the best place to eat, for example, where to get dry cleaning done, and that type of thing. So I think that most businesses need to think a little bit outside of their box about strictly the product or service that they really offer on a local basis, and talk more about the community basically that they're in and what their affiliation with the community really is. Mike, you were talking about how having sort of some of these tactics that are old school when it comes to local SEO, like just swapping out keywords, you know, with or locations in the copy, but necessarily keeping most of these pages the same, might get you dinged in Google. Now, with the way that local's really going, I want to set us for the next question, which is, if you optimize for local, does it mean that it comes at the expense of regular organic SEO?
No, actually, it doesn't. In a lot of our cases, especially today, you can actually rank really well in both, and you'll see repeatedly that usually the person in the top position in a local pack will actually be ranking in the top 1 to 3 places organically as well. and so to me, I look at it as you need to have a local organic strategy, and then your local listings are just kind of an additional piece to that. But we face things as trying to rank organically, and usually if you rank organically, it doesn't take too much extra of just making sure that a few things are right across reviews and citations to do well in a map pack at that point, because you know, since some recent updates, Google's combined the algorithms tight enough that so much of the ranking signals that Google is getting are coming from organic ranking already. So I actually tend to focus more organic and then go back to the maps as a secondary piece now.
Yeah, you know what, and we're doing some of the same stuff as well. One of the things you can do is add more context to your local ranking by actually optimizing your website with the right types of local signals. So I actually wanted to ask Marcus about that. What are some ways that you might actually leverage your own website and the control you have over it to actually help you rank better within a snack pack or a 7-pack?
Do you mean sort of on-page signals? Or
yeah, technical SEO or on-page signals that you can send to Google so that your website is essentially perceived as your best citation source.
We see that, you know, local, organic, even paid, they're complementary. You know, they all work together in sort of synergy. So, you know, if you have, say for instance, we have a business that has 5 locations, then each one's going to have a specific location page. And those pages are going to have the business, you know, all of the specific details, so schema markup for address, and optimized page titles, and an optimized meta description, and this good, unique content that's specific for that area. And maybe the opening hours are marked up as well, and the nappies, you know, is marked up on that page as well. So it really always comes down to doing the foundational elements well. You know, it's not that there's some kind of crazy silver bullet. It's just we have to think of this kind of, you know, make this page or these pages work for humans, but also make them so that a simple machine kind of learning system can crawl those pages, can understand the physical placement of them within the site, and also can understand, you know, the basics really, the page titles, having the nap on the page, you know, get these foundational elements there, and you know, you're halfway there.
Brilliant. And I wanted to ask Caleb. Caleb, we have a bunch of attendees who I think are either consultants or agencies that provide local search consulting services. As a consultant, you're always looking out for the best interest of your client. So when you're reading blog posts online and going through the RSS feeds and that type of thing, what is a good way of being able to validate that the information you're getting, whether it might be implementing schema, for example, or there's this new thing known as JSON LD for being able to implement schema. How do you know if you did that correctly?
Yeah, so I think that that's actually schema is a great example because there's a lot of I guess not ambiguity, but not a lot of understanding around it, right? It only applies to very specific situations. It's not leveraged on every single website, depending on yours. One way that I have over time kind of learned to validate or invalidate a lot of kind of what's being thrown out there is the comments on the actual RSS feed or on the articles that are being sent out. The cool thing about SEO is that people are also very engaged in the information that goes out, testing things, doing heat maps, doing you read stuff that like Dr. Pete puts out from Moz. I mean, some of it's just unbelievable, the tests that they actually put out. So the cool thing about it is though that there's a bunch of people that read those articles and they comment about their experience and what they did, what worked, what didn't work, and questions. So I think that's one way is if you read a piece of information, look how people are responding to it and how they're implementing it. And the other way is to just do a little bit more research on it to see if it actually applies to your website. Understanding what it is that your goal of your website is, what you're trying to drive, who you're trying to drive it to, or drive to it, is a really easy way of creating a very specific search query in Google to say, does schema.org work for sites that are service specific or are product specific or whatever it is, to see if it even applies to what it is that you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, being able to just continue testing and looking at the comments, I mean, that's a brilliant way of being able to understand that. Actually, on the topic of comments, if you're thinking about how to add more context to your product or service pages, Amazon's actually a really good resource for this because you can start looking at Amazon reviews for a product and often find a lot of great keyword data within the reviews itself that you can add to your product or service pages, or perhaps even to your local pages, for example. Another way of being able to actually test whether you've implemented something like schema properly is using tools that Google already provides to you. For example, they've got Google Search Console, which used to be called Google Webmaster Tools, and there's a way of being able to understand whether you have proper or broken markup for most of your website over there. And they also have a rich data snippets tool, which lets you test whether or not the code has essentially been implemented properly. Now I want to shift gears a little bit, and I want to talk about maybe what might be a counterintuitive question. With the rise of Facebook ads, for example, and Facebook usage being extremely mobile, with 60% plus usage being around mobile phones, we do have this question sometimes pop up about, is it better to use local PPC ads to reach the consumer at the right place and the right time, rather than playing the long game and waiting, in some cases, an indefinite amount of time to rank organically or within local? And I wanted to get Caleb's point of view on this.
Yeah, so it's a great question because a lot of the updates that have been made, including the snack pack, have really pushed paid ads to the forefront, even more so specifically in mobile, where in a lot of cases you won't even see an organic listing outside of the snack pack or paid ads until you scroll down the page. It's not above the fold anymore. So, but saying that, I think taking the approach of focusing solely on paid search or PPC, it's going to leave you in a constant state of expense, both in media spend, but also in like the labor of actually running a program like that. So while you're getting kind of that short-term investment, taking this approach, you're not investing in the long-term success of your site and what it's going to look like, but rather just the instant gratification, which can absolutely pertain to a lot of scenarios around promotions or events or even launches. And actually, there was a post that was one of Mike's that he recently posted, and I'm going to steal his thunder here a little bit, but he did like a heat map, and it shows that people still click on organic over paid, even when it's increased in prominence. So it's showing more and more, but people still prefer to click on an organic result. So I mean, taking all that into consideration, paid search or PPC is a fantastic tactic to utilize, but in terms of exchanging it out for your organic efforts or your SEO efforts, you're really going to constantly have to support that media tactic, whereas SEO is going to get you greater gains over time.
Yeah, I think that's a great in terms of insight. I've heard and seen in working within the industry for a long time now that people do tend to trust organic results more, way more than paid search results. They are complementary and they work together. And I wanted to ask Mike actually. So why do you think that is? Why do people care about and trust organic results other than the fact that they get visibility?
I think it's on two fronts. One is that as a society or just people in general, we're trained to stop looking at ads, and so anytime there's any type of ad or identifiable ad, your mind just automatically starts skipping over that. But the other thing is that I think initially, especially in Google, the ad quality was very low, and there was a lot of bait and switch advertising, and so an older generation of searchers just probably did not find as useful of an information through ads as they did through organic search. Or also a lot of how-to information there, the ads weren't very relevant, and so they just got so used to looking at organic search for finding relevant information that they've just continually been trained to do that. What I find interesting is all the different tests that Google does to try to change that. You know, and it makes sense, and they continue to increase ad revenue by doing this, and I think that's why we have so many different iterations of a UI, is that if they continually mix it up, even if things seem to be working, it just retrains users to look at things differently. And so the biggest thing I'm really watching for the rest of this year and into 2016 is exactly what they're doing with ads and local. Because I think we're actually coming to a day where local has more of a pay-to-play side than it actually has an organic side when it comes to a map pack. And we're seeing small tests where they're doing 3 or 4 listings above the map that will look exactly like a local listing, and then another 3 or 4 below the listing. We're seeing 2 tests right now in San Francisco where they're running just straight ads. The whole map pack is nothing but ads, and it's a similar map pack, but it shows a phone number and goes to a different user experience for plumbers and also locksmiths. And so I think all of these things play together, and it just goes down to the fact that Google is going to monetize local. It's their #1 area that they have not been able to get as much money out of as I think they can. And so every type of test we're going to see from here on out is going to be trying to find ways to monetize and make more money from that because it's their biggest opportunity. And if I'm Google, I'm going to do the same. So you know, we've got to watch and see what that's going to mean for the future of, you know, a local map pack.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and it's a tried and tested path as well, because pre-Google Maps, the #1 way that local businesses promoted themselves is through the Yellow Pages, and then going from there, the Internet Yellow Pages model, which is proven. I mean, if you're looking for a list of businesses and you can go through an advertising model to surface a small portion of them above the others, I think that type of feedback that Google's been giving local businesses, where many local businesses often live and die essentially off their rankings, and you know, the phone calls dry up when they stop ranking, and the phone calls pour in when they are ranking. It gives that validation that if Google were to go to a pay-to-play model, that I think a lot of businesses would end up participating. And we've seen that with things like AdWords Express, for example, that tie into Map, or even, for example, Google Maps extensions in AdWords that you can add in directly. So I can only see that model becoming more and more robust. Now, staying on the topic of local SEO, there are a ton of mistakes that people often make. So let's move on to our next question. And I wanted to ask Marcus about this one. What are some of the local SEO mistakes that you often see but that everybody should avoid?
Gosh, where to start? Well, I guess one of the big standout ones is bad reviews. You know, spam reviews where they've put a bunch of reviews onto their profile, or they've had a friend or whoever it may be do reviews for them. Again, the keywords crammed into you know, the business name in the Google Plus page. You know, too many citations. Like, I think there's this from back in the day where people were building sort of directory links. There's still this kind of, somewhere out there, more is better. So we get clients and they're not ranking, and you know, we have a look at what they've done, and maybe people in their industry have around, or the pack have 30 or 40 citations, and they've got 500 or something ridiculous, and they're just, you know. So I think we see a lot of bad reviews. We see a lot of people who are trying to fake their address or create location pages where they haven't got a physical address, or use service officers. To generalize, trying to game the system. We still see lots and lots of folks that come to us and they don't seem to understand that their attempts to game the system are what has caused the problem in the first place.
Caleb, I wanted to move over to a more situational question. I want to talk about the practice versus practitioner setup, where you might end up, for example, a dental practice, which is a dental clinic that has many dentists that work within it. Google really has shifted its stance on the best way to deal with practitioner type companies, for example, a legal firm or a dental clinic, for example. What are some mistakes that you see businesses often making when they happen to operate within a practitioner type framework?
Yeah, so that's actually a fantastic question. We have a few clients that work in finance and insurance, and they have a very similar setup to that. It's basically agents within a business. So there might be 10 agents within one office. So same idea with a dentist office. They might have multiple dentists and things like that. One of the mistakes or misconceptions that I think that they have is that they still can't have the opportunity to brand themselves. So, if I'm a dentist and you're a dentist within the same office, we still have ample opportunity to actually have our own practices.
I think we might have lost Caleb, but
obviously is to have a single local site for every practitioner within your office, okay? To have a page at least that talks about you and you specifically. It kind of goes back to the other example of, a franchisee or a franchisor that has a bunch of franchisees, setting yourself apart as unique and as credible. So having your own website, a unique phone number always helps a lot too. If you can actually have a unique phone number that goes directly to you, that's very helpful as well. And then even your own listing, your own citations, your own backlink profile, your own things that you're sending out to search engines saying that I am my own person and I'm different than the person down the hall from me, even though we share the same address. So I would say local site and then phone number are probably two of the bigger pieces that you can do.
Cool. I think that's valuable feedback. Mike, I have a question for you, and this has to do around prioritization of local search strategies and tactics. So I'm a big believer in doing the right things rather than doing things right. And there's many things that have diminishing returns in local search. So for example, Marcus was talking about tons and tons of citations as a metric to measure against. What are some of the things that people focus on that are perhaps like that really don't get much dividends in terms of the amount of effort they put in?
I would say number one, as you mentioned, is citations. I think once you get a certain base correct, there's very quickly diminishing returns on that front. Next, I would probably say, that's kind of an interesting question. From a ranking standpoint, I would say reviews. There's definitely a bump that comes after 5 to 6, and especially with showing stars or different things like that. But if you're judging between a business that has 50 reviews to 90 reviews, you have a general idea that they have enough that you can get good information. But for your business, it's good to continue to have that feedback to continue to grow and show recency. When it comes to on-site, I see a lot of people that always just seem to be playing on-site, trying to make little changes here to fix things when, let's be honest, when it comes to ranking, links are still going to be the #1 most powerful way to get anything done, and you can fix almost, I hate saying this and I shouldn't, but I'm going to, you can fix almost anything with links. And so
totally true.
Yeah, it's like sales. Sales cures all.
Yeah, it's like sales. I mean, you can have a super crappy operation, but if you're selling the crap out of it, then your business will continue to run. It might not run great, but it's going to run. And to me, links are a lot like that. That's the one thing there's rarely a diminishing return on, because until you reach Google authority status, or Wall Street Journal authority status, there's always more room to grow that allows you to do a little bit better. But ultimately, you have to balance across everything. The #1 problem that I see, or the biggest thing, would be just one tactic. If your website sucks, yeah, lots of links might get you to rank, but nobody's going to call you because your website doesn't look good. If you only have citations and you don't have any reviews, they're the same problem. If you only have reviews but all of your citations are completely shot, then you're ultimately not going to be able to show up in the ranking. So the worst thing you can do is be a one-trick pony. You have to balance across everything, and if you have that balance, you'll generally do fine. So that's how I would answer that question.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, all valid points and great answer. I want to talk to Marcus about something that affects local search outside of the United States. So, Marcus, you're in England, we're here in Canada, and we don't, I mean, the commonality between our countries is that we don't end up having this thing known as a data aggregator. So the folks in the US, like Caleb and Mike, get to work with companies like Infogroup or Moz Local, for example, that can syndicate out to these data aggregators, and no such thing actually exists in Canada or in the UK. What are some of the mistakes that you see when people build citations in countries that don't have a kind of unified data aggregation system?
That they're wrong, basically. That the citations, they're inconsistent, that the addresses are wrong, that the naming conventions are wrong, that they've outsourced local SEO to someone historically, and they've built a bunch of citations and they're incorrect. They haven't considered duplicates or previous people. You know, it's a lot more of a manual task, I think. When we've worked with some clients in the US and been able to look at some of these tools, but primarily when we do a citation audit or a citation cleanup, it's, you know, we start with Google. We look what's there. You know, we will use some of the tools out there, BrightSpark and, you know, WhiteSpark, sorry, and BrightLocal, but primarily, you know, it has to be a manual job. But you know, again, it just comes down to just these core factors of quality. That someone's looked at citations, they've created hundreds, they're inconsistent. Some of the address is wrong. They may have the old website link or something, you know, that they're just not correct. It's you've got to, and certain key citations are so valuable or so visible, certainly in the UK, that when they've only got the bare bones bit of information on them, when they can have reviews on these citation pages, they can have additional kind of product information. You know, they're just, people tend to break this down into a kind of a checklist. Must have more citations, but they don't consider it. They don't consider the quality at an individual level.
For sure. I mean, I wanted to actually pause for a moment and take a question from the audience. So Matt is asking, what exactly is a citation?
For me, sorry. Okay.
Go for it. Yeah.
A citation, obviously, there's two, generally regarded as being two kinds of citations. So, you know, a structured citation or a classical citation is a listing for your business. So, if, for instance, our business is in central Birmingham and our address is listed on our business, and then we have, you know, 4 or 5 really big, highly visible business directories, and they also have the same data, and then we have a Google Plus page, and it also has the same address and the same listings and the same categorization. It just helps Google or a machine learning system like Google understand that, hey, actually, you know, these guys probably are where they say they are because these are the listings all line up, and the Google Plus page lines up, and oh, look, there was a review on the Google Plus page a week ago. It's helping a machine system understand that yeah, these guys are where they say they are. I mean, at the end of the day, Google is just a referral engine. So to make that referral to one of their customers, one of their users, they have to trust that you know that referral is going to be correct.
Yeah, brilliant. And then Caleb, what is an unstructured citation, and are they important?
Yeah, I mean, you know, they are important. So basically, the unstructured one is when you're not going through a directory, or not going through an aggregator, or it's not on a site like that. So it's basically a mention of your business or where you're located on the web. You know, that exists out there. So they are important because Google search engines are looking at a variety of different ways to actually locate your business and learn things about your business. They're looking at aggregators, they're looking at government entities, they're looking at a lot of stuff, and they're also looking at unstructured citations, just mentions of people that have put on their website or in their review or whatever it is about your business. So they are very important. But they're you know, the directories are just as important, the structured citation aspect of it.
I was wondering if it means that if you could potentially place your address anywhere you're on the web, for example, you put up a YouTube video or something like that, is it a good practice to put your address or the business name, for example, within the description of your YouTube video, for example, or anywhere you can possibly paste it in?
Good. Marcus, do you want to take that?
Go for it, Mike.
No, I was just going to say, no, you don't want to spam it. You know, you can, if you have profiles like a YouTube profile, or if you have other social profiles, Facebook page, or Twitter account, something like that, absolutely, totally cool. But don't try to get too creative with it in terms of just throwing it out on the web in a bunch of different spaces. They'll see it spammy, and it won't do you any good.
It makes sense, basically, right? Do it where it makes sense.
Precisely.
Okay. So let's move on to what this webinar is actually about. We want to talk about the top local search ranking factors in 2015. For the audience, if you search local search ranking factors, there's a great study that a friend of mine, David Mim, had put together over 8 years ago, and a number of the people who are on this webinar today have been sort of participants in that as well. But let's try to boil it down to the top 5 factors, okay? And I want to hear from maybe starting with Marcus and then going on to Mike and then finally Caleb.
It always comes back to links, doesn't it, and authority. At the end of the day, that's kind of the #1 factor. We have these other foundational elements. If you have no authority on the web, you know, specifically since the the pigeon update, then you're just not going to rank.
Okay. Mike, a couple of factors.
I'll take or local. The key point is to have your consistent across your data companies, such as I would say info group is #1, and then you can have localese, Axiom, Factual, and then Yelp. As far as getting into the actual directories, Yelp would be next. And then specifically for your industry, do a search for your industry. So for instance, let's say lawyers, and then I would put directory or lawyers reviews and see what companies are showing up. You might find, for instance, in law, Avvo is going to be one of the top ranking websites on any search, so that's going to be a place you need to make sure you have your data correct. So building that and getting all of that data correct across all of the major spots is a very good first step. Great tools to do that. You have Moz Local. Yext does some, but you still have to go in. It doesn't work with the data aggregators, so you would have to update those separately. Or you can do pretty much everything by hand if you would choose to. So.
Yeah, so I think that those are great ones. Those are probably the top ones that we talk about consistently. I think one that I'll throw out is geotagging in your metadata. Basically, adding city, states within the tags on your site. So even in your URL structure, if you have a specific area or city that you're trying to show up well in, making it part of your URL if possible, or at least the page, the directory that you're actually publishing this content to. Things like title tags, things like your H1 through H6, just trying to incorporate city and state, or even neighborhood, or DMA, whatever it is that you're trying to target that region is putting it in your metadata in a variety of ways. Not overdoing it and not trying to make it seem spammy, but really just making sure that it's very clear in your markup where you are and where you're trying to show up for.
Okay, brilliant. So we're getting towards the end now, and one of the things that I wanted to ask you guys was there's a lot of tools and platforms available within local search to help you understand competitive metrics, to help you with listings, to help you with optimization, for example. What are some of your favorite paid and free tools? So maybe we'll start off with Mike.
Okay. So are you there? Okay. My favorite overall just paid tool that I would recommend to a small business or to a small agency or something like that in the local space would be Bright Local. I think that when it comes to cost plus the scope of what they offer, it's probably the best well-rounded tool that you could have one tool to run everything you need. If you're a much bigger agency, you might have to go beyond that. But that covers most people. As far as free tool goes, you know, one thing that we still use quite a bit is running information through Moz Local or Yext, as far as just doing a citation search to see what data shows up on a company. It gives you a good snapshot on if your listings are accurate or not instantly, that you can do for free. That's a great free tool to use to just see those things. So.
Okay, Caleb, what about you?
Yeah, so I think from a paid perspective, so we kind of have a unique business that, you know, that businesses that we work with, and we work with companies that have a lot of locations, right? So it's very important for us to know how that location's showing up in that local market for a variety of search terms that we're trying to kind of target. So one paid tool that I use, it's a rank tracker. It's White Spark. It's out of Canada, actually. Darren Shaw, it's a fantastic tool. So we're able to utilize that to say, even if you have multiple locations, if you're a business with multiple locations, being able to go in and say, hey, here are the things that I'm hoping I'm showing up for, or wanting to show up for. Here are the markets in which these sites exist or trying to show up for, and how am I doing right now, and how am I doing to track that over time and see how your rankings are being affected, not only by what you're doing, but also just by the algorithm changes and by all the different functionality that's being introduced, right? So this snack pack is going to totally skew that, and that happens all the time when they introduce new functionality. So it's a really cool rank tracker that we like. In terms of a free tool, I mean, the Webmaster Tools is still, you know, it's a free tool. It's probably the best one. One that I still use is the free version of Screaming Frog. Screaming Frog just allows you to just get an output of everything in your site. So you can make sure that all of your title tags are unique. You can make sure that you have meta descriptions where necessary, even though it's not a ranking factor. You have them in there. It shows you your canonical URLs, everything about your site, and shows you if you don't have it, and lets you know, or if you do have it and you need to make changes to it, or if anything looks awry. So those will probably be my two.
Yeah, those are great recommendations. Finally, Marcus, best free and paid tools that you like?
Yeah, paid tools, certainly for a small local business, and Bright Local. It just does everything that they need, from rank trackers to, you know, to a citation look. There's even a kind of local SEO audit that gives you a kind of, you know, a kind of top-down view of everything. We use a few of the kind of rank trackers, you know, White Spark, but really we find that, you know, Bright Local pretty much does what we need for most small businesses. As a free tool, I mean, I think, again, Screaming Frog, if people are happy to kind of dig into the different tabs and to look at all of the data on, you know, just, again, it gives you a great sort of snapshot up to 500 pages without having to pay the license. But again, I mean, I'm kind of old school. My favourite tool is always Google. I think, you know, a business can learn a lot about themselves, a lot about their citations, a lot about their unstructured citations simply by Googling themselves, maybe using certain sort of search operators and really digging through that data, having a look what's out there. Something I particularly like from by doing these kind of searches on Google, and again, this may be more relevant in the UK because of the different way the sort of data aggregators work, but you get everything in a specific kind of order, so you can be relatively sure that the things that Google thinks are quite important are going to come up sooner than the things that are on page 10, 11, 12. So, you know, if you want a free tool to find out everything that's out there about your business, then just start searching for yourself.
Brilliant. Okay, and so now we're getting to really the most actionable part of the webinar, which is what's the #1 local SEO tip that our viewers can implement later today if you happen to be a local business with either a one location or a few locations in a, let's say, a medium to a competitive city is what you operate in. And I'll start off with Caleb.
Yeah, so I'll skip with there were a couple that I was going to mention. One was kind of Mike touched on, was going to Moz Local and entering your business. You know, your business in your zip, and just see how accurately you're represented across the web. But one thing that I would recommend everyone do is go back and just review your GMB listing, your Google My Business listing, and ensure that it is completely accurate with what you want it to be. This is something that a lot of businesses they get overrun with marketing, or they set it up and then kind of don't touch it again and think that it's just going to be fine. Just like the SERP, Google's constantly changing the functionality within their primary categories, even descriptions, stuff like that. So I would say go in there. Is the address the same as the one on your website? Is it exactly the same, as in if you spell suite versus STE? Do you have a description? Do you have a primary category? Accurate hours? Are they updated? If not, fix that. And then check out your insights within there. Look at your reporting within Google My Business and see if the people that you're getting clicks and calls from are the people that you're trying to get clicks and calls from. There is some demographic data in there that can give you insight and see if you're targeting the right people and if they're engaging with your website. So that would be Google My Business is a very important part of any local SEO strategy. So ensuring that that's focused on is very important.
Right, Marcus.
Yeah, I'd say probably, Google My Business obviously is important, but beyond that, reviews, because reviews can help you in just so many different ways. Get honest reviews from real local customers that are similar to the kind of customers that you're looking to target. Reviews will give you a small ranking kind of bump, but they will, better than that, they'll get people to interact with your local listings. You can embed these reviews on your page, again using schema, so they'll show up on your organic listings. You'll just drive more people to your site from those search results, again, and provide those people something they need to make a decision. Now, in the UK at least, in the small business space, most small businesses don't have reviews. So in that pack, you can be the only company there, a lot of the time, with a review. I think that's really powerful.
Brilliant. Mike?
All right, little couple things. Piggybacking off of reviews, a great thing for small businesses. There's a company called Get 5 Stars, and they have a really good process that you can implement on a website very easily to help kind of build reviews into your just business process. So check that out. As far as what I would recommend, beyond that, get local links from city organizations, business organizations, and any groups and different things that you're a member of in your communities. I would say that's the really easy, low-hanging fruit that can give you one of the biggest yields, is just going, getting the 5 to 10, maybe if you're in a, you're really active in your community, it might be 15 to 20 links. Those will help you move up in the rankings, probably more than about any other thing that you could do.
And then for the local businesses that are attending this, or if you're a local consultant, one of the best ways of getting those links is literally to reach out and make a person-to-person connection. Pick up the phone, send an email, walk down to the local community center, for example, and say, hey, how can we help you get more business or presence, and we'd like to be able to partner up with you in some way. And so sometimes those local links, you'll see that there's a lot of communities that actually need sponsorships and don't have any. It's a great opportunity for businesses to be able to partner up, and it doesn't actually cost a lot either. I mean, you can end up having sponsorships for as little as $50 to $100 and have a link with a logo perhaps for your company for an entire year, and then that just becomes an ongoing opportunity for you to basically capitalize off of and also do some good within your community as well. So those are really good tips. I think we're going to move on to a few of the questions that we have had in this webinar. So the first question over here is, so Mike says multiple pages for one location and use service pages for that. I'd like to hear specifically how you're actually rolling out multiple pages for different services. Does each location service page link back to the main location page for that city?
Yeah, so I guess the best way to explain this is look at a directory. So go, if you go to Yelp, you have a city page for Yelp, let's say Salt Lake City, okay? From that page, they link to every relevant local page, for Salt Lake City there, starting with some of your main businesses, pictures, different things like that. And so that's how we would treat a local or multiple local landing pages for a location. You have a main hub that's the overall page. So for instance, you might do, let's take a plumber, for instance. You have a page that talks about the fact that you're a plumber in Salt Lake City. but a plumber does remodels. A plumber does, fixes, and they'll have pictures and different things and reviews for each of these. So each individual page beyond that could go into a specific service listing right from that main page that would talk about, hey, here's all the remodels we've done, the pullouts, the before and after shots, different things like that, and that's a completely separate page that's just part of your Salt Lake City directory of pages. So that's how I'd handle that.
That makes a lot of sense. So there's another person who had a problem dealing with old Google listings that were claimed by a former employee or an agency. They're trying to figure out what's a good way to be able to claim those again. Maybe Caleb, you can talk about this. You must see this in the insurance and other industries like that a lot.
Yeah, it's actually not a fun problem to have, especially at scale when you have that. So the first way of doing it is just see if you. It just sounds very remedial, but see if you can find the login. That's the easiest way to do it. Seriously, if you can get the login or get that person to give it to you, reach out. It might be awkward, but we've had to do it before. But if you can get that, that is the fastest and easiest way to do it. The second option would be to actually reach out to the publisher that it's on or where the bad data exists and see if you can do anything there. The last piece would be to introduce new, better data. To actually introduce the correct data about your business through whether it's an aggregator or whether it's through different citations or anywhere on the web, of making sure that you get that out there so that eventually search engines will notice that and say, okay, well, the new stuff is being pushed out. We see that more as being more reputable and more credible, and it will overwrite some of the other stuff. But again, all of that none of that is an exception for just trying to get into the actual account itself and fix the data right at the source.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And then Google has now, in the last couple of years, launched a system where you can essentially lock down a listing. It used to be the case that whoever claimed the listing last ended up getting control of it, but I'm glad that those times are behind us. So it is possible to still verify a business even if you don't have access to it by going through a new claiming process, and Google will ask you at that point in time, did you mean this business that we already know about? And that is one way of being able to go about it, but it's an arduous process, especially if you have a ton of locations. One last question was from somebody who asked, what do we do in Canada if we don't have aggregators up here? So maybe I'll quickly chime in over there and say that you need to understand what the most what the most important citation sources in Canada really are. Also, this would be applicable for any country that doesn't have an aggregator. Moz Local's got an entire directory basically by country for all the most important citation sources that you should be present in. So you probably want to go check that out. Find your business or claim it on those directories, and that would be a great first step to being able to be able to get local visibility. So with that, guys, thank you so much for being part of this webinar. We have a few housekeeping items before we wrap up today, and I wanted to talk a little bit about inbound con. So if you enjoyed this webinar today and got some actionable value from it, I couldn't imagine the amount of value you could possibly get by attending Inbound Con, which is an inbound marketing conference here in Toronto, Canada. It's taking place on October 8th, and we've got some amazing speakers coming out. Folks like Ollie Gardner from Unbounce with the landing page platform. There's Sean Ellis from growthhackers.com. Yours truly will be speaking basically as well. John Cooper from Point Blank SEO will be talking a lot about link building, including local link building as well. And the early bird tickets are actually expiring on Friday, and you can save $100 before it's too late. So if you want to check that out, it's inboundcon.com. Tickets are going pretty fast, and a very limited number of early bird tickets are left. So with that, guys, thank you so much for attending the webinar today. I'd like to acknowledge and thank Mike, Caleb, and Marcus, and our wonderful crew here at Powered by Search with Goran and Dwayne. And for all of your help basically today. I hope you'll join us for our continuing series throughout 2015. And with that, I bid everybody a great day ahead and to hear some more learning and doing around digital marketing. Cheers.